swagger, okay? Regardless of what happens out there. Doesn't matter. Keep your swagger.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 5-Hole Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We're your hosts today, TJ, Zach, and Raj.
Hey there.
Hey.
So we got an exciting episode.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm always excited. I'm like a fucking golden retriever.
Our biggest disagreement of all is in this episode, I think.
It will be, yeah.
Erik Karlsson, number 2.
So we're finishing off our rankings episodes. Today we got your top 10 defensemen for fantasy, and we've gotten this question a lot. People want to know if we have like a bangers slant, if we're looking at these guys through categories lens or points only lens. I personally tried to do it somewhere in the middle, just so it would be as widely applicable as possible. And I think looking at your guys' lists, it seems pretty similar that we all kind of tried to meet in the middle, make it as relevant as possible for all types of leagues.
Yeah,
agreed. But I mean, I will say sometimes depending on a certain player, I might be a little slanted because it's like, hey, you're not going to get this kind of point production from many defensemen. So some of them might slip a little higher into my ranks.
Quinn Hughes, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because he does points and that's it. So yeah, like, somebody like Hughes is, for me, I guess I had more of a banger slant because he's a lot lower on my list than your guys, but it is what it is. Today we got some news. How do you guys feel about this Timmy Stützle?
Love it.
8 times 8.35.
Yeah, I love it.
They're betting on him because he has not produced at 8.35 yet. The plan is that he will.
The plan is that he will, and he'll be worth more than that, and you're going to have him for 8 years, where, 5 of those years, he might be worth, $9-10 million.
And I'm seeing some tweets out there. People are tweeting about the Ottawa core only costs like $37 million. And then you look at Toronto and they're like, all right, well, they're spending $47 million on their core. But at this point, the Toronto core is just so much better than the Ottawa core right now. And it's like, come on, $10 more million for 5 players. $2 million a player, however you want to average it out. But this is a team that has consistently brought you to the playoffs, consistently, game 7s. They're right on the cusp of, you guys remember how Washington was? They could never get past the first round. They could never get past Pittsburgh. And then they finally did. And that year they won the cup. Toronto just has that kind of energy. As soon as they get over that first round hump, it's just, they have all the momentum in the world. And that's going to be the year.
For sure. And I mean, even Tampa too, right? Before they started this streak, they had a pretty embarrassing year and a couple disappointing years before that. So Toronto is nowhere close to the same league as Ottawa. I mean, that's a silly comparison, but
we'll see how this one ages. But $8.35 million a year, that's top power play money, guys. That is top power play money. So is this another, wrench in the stew? Whatever, I just made up an idiom here on the spot here, but
I mean, obviously, like you're just saying about the money, this is obviously an 8-year plan, so I don't think they'll necessarily rush him into a position they don't think he's ready for. But I do think he is going to get all the chance to be a power play player, but I don't think they're going to push it because, like Zach was saying, he might be overpaid for 2 years and then properly paid for 2 years and then a great value for 3 or 4 years. And then, you know what I mean? So they're definitely looking at it that way. So I don't think they'll push him into a position, but
if it's one thing they got, it's time.
Well, and, it's going to have a lot to do with what goes on with Batherson, too. If he doesn't end up playing, then there's one less player for him to worry about. Yeah, I like the contract.
I love this whole deal. I like the direction that they're moving in. And you also have to take into account that the Ottawa Senators are the 3rd youngest team in the entire league. Mm-hmm. They're one of only 3 teams that have an average age of 25 years old. That's fucking young for an NHL team.
And they've got this core locked up. That's the thing. So you got Shabbat under contract, Norris.
So you have this really young core. I think it spells good things. And it might not be this year, but they are moving in the right direction.
Yep. And that's the thing. They have time. DeBrincat after this year is looking for another contract. So maybe he stays with Ottawa. That would be excellent. They got Giroux for 3. Those could be the 3 years where Stützle's, learning the ropes from Giroux. And that just turns out to be, the perfect mentorship there. But, all right, let's get into our defense rankings. Man, we're coming back to this with Cale Makar at number 1. He is our consensus number 1. All 3 of us had him at number 1. There's no debate about this one. Last year it was Josi, but we'll all agree, and most of our listeners probably have the same thought running through their head about Roman Josi, is that Nashville was punching above their weight class last year. Forsberg hit 40 goals. Duchesne hit 40 goals. Duchesne might have been one of the most unsustainable players of last year. And there was just a lot of unsustainability on that team. I think, the top line, number 1, they accounted for most of the points. And everything always funnels through, like it bottlenecks around Josi. He is going to be the top point producer on the team every year without fail. But when you take that regression to the top line, it's going to trickle down to Josi's totals, and that's where it happens. I think they shot like 14% on ice shooting percentage on that top line. It was nuts. But we're talking about Cale Makar here, and there's plenty of good things to say about him. This is still a really good team. That top power play lost Nazem Kadri, but they've got guys like, and Andre Burakovsky, but they've got guys to fill in. They have Arturi Lehkonen, they have Valery Nichushkin, who could be on that top power play, but they still have the big 3. They still have Cale Makar. He's going to be pushing for 90 points. Yeah, what do you guys got on him?
He's at least a point per game defenseman.
At least, like, that's a safe floor.
At least a point per game defenseman. On top of the fact, it's not like he gives you a ton of bangs or a ton of blocks, but he does give you at least 1 or more per game. Like, you have to like that. He's helping out a little bit everywhere, and it's the points. It's just the points. And I understand, and I totally agree with the whole Roman Josi thing, because I'm a Roman Josi owner, and I don't know if he's the keeper. I actually have Hedman and Josi. And like I've said before, I think I'm going to have to go Hedman, because I think that regression is real. That regression is fucking real. I don't trust you, Matt Duchesne. And that is really going to hurt. All of these, personal bests just happening all in 1 year. I don't believe it for next year. Now, if it does, then I'm wrong. And I'm okay with that too. But I'd rather take the safe bet and take someone like Cale Makar. It's not Josi. He slipped. He actually slipped. I was the lowest on him.
You were, yeah.
All of Nashville was just a crazy, awesome season. Like, just to put it in perspective, how crazy it was too. Like, Josi had more power play points than Makar. Nobody should have more power play points as a defenseman than Cale Makar playing on the Avalanche power play, right? So 2 years ago, and for all the years before that, it was embarrassingly bad, and then just all of a sudden it's
the worst.
You know what I mean? So great season on Josi, but Josi also had 20 more assists, which is just crazy. I can only imagine at least 20 of those assists are going to disappear this year just from sheer unsustainability of the forwards.
And the power play. For the power play I know you guys were just talking about this, but for it to come out of nowhere in 1 year, that's an outlier. It's got to be an outlier. This might not be the new Nashville power play. It could have just been one of those unsustainable years, because unsustainability doesn't have to go away after 2 weeks. It can go a whole year. We saw it with, Kreider. We saw it with Duchesne this year. There's just too many, going with what Raj was saying, too many firsts. This was the first year Nashville saw a 40 goal scorer, and they saw 2 of them. The first year in their history of being a team. So there's that. I'm looking at the power play totals right now. Victor Hedman actually led defensemen in power play totals, 1 point behind Cale Makar. He had 5 more games played, but that's in and of itself, that's useful. Having that defenseman there for those 5 extra games, still over a point per game. And I'll tie this right into it. All 3 of us have Victor Hedman at number 2, which, this is a bit of an iconoclastic, to use a 25-cent word here. It's a contrarian this year. Nobody really has Victor Hedman at number 2.
You just had 50 cents.
Contrarian and iconoclastic. Yeah. Cashing in today, boys. Hedman, man, we're talking about him. He had 1 point less than Cale Makar in 5 more games. So we're looking at point per game, 1.04 for Victor Hedman, 1.12 for Cale Makar. But Victor Hedman is the type of player that is there. Cale Makar has, never had a full season in his career. And Victor Hedman, on the other hand, has been generally pretty healthy. Like, he's always up there. This past year, he had 82 games. Going back, 54 out of a potential 56, 66 out of like 70, however much Tampa had. And then, he's fallen into those Cale Makar, but he came really close. And I don't think it's talked about enough that Victor Hedman at number 2 in our defenseman rankings. Like, it feels right. And it's almost that Hedman had a quiet year.
Similar to Vasilevsky, right? It's just like, exactly what's going to happen, barring any crazy injury out of nowhere or anything. Like, exactly what's going to happen with Victor Hedman. There's no worries whatsoever. And I think that's worth a lot when you're talking about a top 2 round kind of guy. All we're really saying here is Yossi's going to regress. If you look at last year in terms of fantasy, it was Josi, Makar, Hedman. So all we're saying really is Yossi's going to drop a couple spots. So we're not really predicting any wild changes or anything.
And it's not like you think he's going to drop far. Like, you guys both have him at number 3, and I have him at number 4.
Yeah, and he still is our consensus number 3. So number 1, we all had Cale Makar. 2, we all had Victor Hedman. 3 was Roman Josi. 3-year average, he's just about point per game. 56-point pace the year before this one, where he put up 33 points in 48 games. So he came out of nowhere again and almost doubled his point pace from 2 years ago to last year. 98-point pace, 37 power play points. He was actually second in the league for defensemen with power play points. Hedman with 38, Josi with 37, Cale Makar, and then Adam Fox. And, strangely enough, those are our top 4 defensemen feasting on the power play. Not necessarily power play merchants, but they are, like, look at this. Cale Makar, Colorado, one of the best teams. Tampa, one of the best teams. New York Rangers, one of the best power plays, up and coming best team. Nashville. So again, there we have the outlier is Nashville and their power play. Like, how much faith do we have in that? How much faith do we have? I know Roman Josi is going to be a good defenseman. He puts up shots like nobody else, puts up blocks, puts up hits. The power play points, which really buoyed his year, the years going back, like, it was a shortened season, but he had 14 power play points in 48 games in the COVID shortened season. And then he had 37 this year. So is Nashville's power play going to be that good next year? A lot of us don't have faith in that. But he's still number 3 on our list. Like, he's still great.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I expect a bunch of regression, and that's why he's not first, where technically last year in terms of fantasy, he ran away with first place last year. We're predicting a huge regression, and it only brings him down that far.
Yeah.
I have Adam Fox number 3 because we've talked about this New York Rangers team extensively here, but I do think that it is going to work. And I've seen that power play, and I've seen how it runs through Adam Fox. I see how they play even 5-on-5. Adam Fox touches the puck so fucking much. And they're a good team. They have so much offensive talent. He's definitely going to continue to get those points. And he's sprinkling in some blocks there. Not a ton of hits, but I think that Adam Fox is going to continue to take steps forward.
Yeah, almost in tandem with the New York Rangers. Like, they keep getting better year over year. And that's one of those rising tide floats all boats. So right here, we're betting on the Rangers to either, stand pat or get a little bit better. Now with Josi, we're betting on the team to fall down a little bit. And I think that might be why, Raj, you have John Carlson down at number 8, while Zach and I have him at 5. He is our number 5 ranked defenseman as a group here. And then Chris Letang right behind him. So, this is still, and this is why I am so against Cale Makar in the first round too. Like, we're still talking about point per game defenseman here. John Carlson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, like, I've got our D ADP right here. John Carlson's going at 37. So that's the 3rd round here.
And he's still throwing in blocks. He could easily get you a point per game. Now, he hasn't done it with the same consistency that someone like a Cale Makar had. But I could see what you're saying about not taking that in the first round. I don't know. It's hard for me to shy away from that. It always will be. But I like John Carlson, and it's, again, because of the team that he's on. That's how I'm not going to lie, it plays a big part into my rankings on what kind of team they are. You know what I mean? Next up, I have Aaron Ekblad. Fantastic fucking team with fantastic fucking offensive talent.
This one surprised me, that being the Ekblad fanboy, I thought I would have him the highest.
I am still really big on Aaron Ekblad. I know they lost some, but I think they're gaining some too. And we'll see if it's more of like a, reload this upcoming year. I don't think it's going to be the same exact as it was with Huberdeau, but I think it's going to be exciting to see. And Aaron Ekblad, if he's staying on the ice, and if he can stay on the ice,
that's the biggest question mark with him.
He could also be point per game. Mm-hmm. Aaron Ekblad, he has that in him.
Now, before we get on to Ekblad, Raj, I wanted to get your take on Carlson. You had him at number 8, the lowest on the three of us about him. Quite a few guys you had ahead of him. Let's start at your number 4, because we didn't even get into your number 4.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Chris Letang. I had him at number 4. His issue has always been injury, and that past year he basically played the full season, and he ended up like 4th overall. And I'm basically banking on him not getting injured, and that is the question: is how much you want to weigh the risk of him getting injured, right? Because every single year he's a top 4 defenseman in terms of points per game. So it's always just been a matter of, is he going to play or not? The team hasn't changed in all this time, right? And his production's basically always been the same. So he's just, he gets a ton of hits. Like, he's got more hits than anybody else in the top 20 defensemen, top 10 in blocks as well. So he's just a great all-around guy. And in terms of Carlson, I just, like I mentioned in the last episode, I don't see Washington as being bad, but I just see them as slowly fading into the distance. And well, a few of these other guys, like I just think Letang is going to be exactly the same as last year. And that's the difference there for me.
And that's a conversation that needs to happen here is Chris Letang injury prone anymore? Over the last 3 years, he's missed 12 games total over the last 3 years. So that's 4 on average. And that's, I remember not too long ago, we're like, well, you can't really draft Chris Letang because he's going to be down for 15 games a year. And it has not been the case over the last 3 years. So getting a guy ADP that we have, which is 5-hole mixed with Yahoo, is 44. So he's going late 3rd. And this is a guy that, using Fantrax's projected scoring here, is going to be 40 points less than Cale Makar.
See, I don't know if I want to spend a 3rd-round pick on Chris Letang, though.
But that's where the value comes in. It's like, a 3rd round on Letang, late 3rd round, or a top 6 pick in Cale Makar. Can you justify that? Like, a lot of people are going in the 3rd. I just got Victor Hedman in the 3rd round in a Fantasy Hockey Trades Invitational, and I was thrilled with that. Like, I drafted 2nd, so it was very early 3rd. I got, heavy bangs. So I got Evander Kane in the 2nd, like very heavy bangs. And I got Austin Matthews at number 2. Going into round 3, I've got Matthews, Evander Kane, Letang. I just drafted Demko in the 4th round, which is very not my style, but the way that the scoring is, like, goalies are very favored. And I noticed a lot of goalies, like Hellebuck was drafted in the 3rd round or the 4th round before Demko. So I had to get a goalie. Very happy with the way that draft is going out. But this is what I want to get at is, like, these guys, Moritz Seider, who's number 9 by ADP, is going, on the 3-4 turn. And this is he's great for banger leagues. And it's more ammunition for me to not draft Cale Makar inside the top 6. And I have pick number 7 in our 5-hole tier 1 listener league. So I'm like, God damn it. Like, the karma in our tier 1 listener league, like, Zach gets number 1 after years and years of bitching, like, oh, I always get number 10. Fuck me. Fuck this. And he's like, this biggest.
I'm always 11. It's a horrid, like, no offense, but 11 is a horrible, like, I know you don't like the top end, but like 11 is just one of the worst freaking spots to draft because it's like you're not even getting a 1st rounder. It's like you're getting 2 2nd-round picks.
No, I get it.
Like, it fucking blows. So yeah.
Well, this is it, because now we can see if you're going to take McDavid or, Matthews. I know you're a Matthews fanboy. Raj is number 2. So there's going to be karma there if he's going to stick with his Draisaitl at number 2 or if he's going to go Matthews here. And I'm at number 7, which is just the hockey gods laughing at me like, oh, you said so much shit about Cale Makar. Okay, well, back it up. Let's see what you have to say. So, yeah, we'll see what I do at number 7. It's a risky spot because I've always said I'm not taking Cale Makar if I have a top 6 pick. So it's just very fitting that I got number 7 overall. But okay, let's get back on the rails here. Chris Letang was Raj's number 4 pick. Number 5 is where you had Adam Fox. And our top 5 here, Cale Makar, Hedman, Yossi, Fox, Carlson. That's where we had Letang. Everything seems to be pointing in the right direction for somebody like Chris Letang. Same as Aaron Ekblad. It's just a matter of health, if he can stay healthy. Number 7. This is where it gets fun. Brent fucking Burns, guys. Brent Burns back in the limelight, playing with the Carolina Hurricanes, playing on their top power play in place of Tony DeAngelo. Zach, you are not high on Brent Burns. You had him at number 11.
I had him outside my top 10.
You did. And me and Raj threw the average. We both had him at 6. So his average here.
Well, I feel like I threw off
you
your
brought him
average.
Down 1 spot.
I'm glad I could do something about it, too.
He was our 7th. This is why I love him. 54-point pace with San Jose last year, right? So there's that. And then you go look at Tony DeAngelo, who played 64 games with Carolina last year, had 20 power play points. And this is in comparison to Brent Burns. I think he had, 18 power play points all year, like 82 games. Number 1, that is what Brent Burns is known for. He does not miss games. 18 power play points with San Jose. Tony D had 2 more power play points in less games, 64 power play points. So Tony D was on a 26 power play point pace. If we give Brent Burns an extra, 8 power play points on top of his 54-point pace, we're looking at a 62-point Brent Burns. And that's taking his San Jose even strength totals to Carolina, where I think we can all agree Brent Burns will be doing better at 5-on-5 in Carolina than he was in San Jose. So taking Tony D's power play points, Brent Burns is, we're hoping that it's going to be better even strength deployment and even strength production. I think we get a 55 plus 60-point Brent Burns here in Carolina. And I'm not worried about him staying on the ice. That's what he does. I'm not worried about how old he is. Carolina is badass. Their power play was a struggle last year, and Brent Burns is going to bring stability to that. He's going to bring his shots back, hopefully. I'm excited about Brent Burns in Carolina.
By the rankings, I'm equally excited. When you look at it, he went from also having Carlson available in San Jose. I know they don't really compete because there's just so much room to play in San Jose, but I think when it comes to Carolina, he's brought in to shoot a lot on the power play. Like, that seems like why he's there. Age isn't really an issue, the way he plays, and he's just such a mountain of a man.
He's old.
I want to get one more thing in before Zach brings his wet blanket out. Tony D saw 68% of the power play time. The last time Brent Burns saw 68% of the power play time, he was an 83-point defenseman on pace. And it's not even, we don't need to say on pace with Brent Burns because he got 83 points in that year. He was shooting fucking 3.7 times a game, and that has gone away. But I think we can get 3 shots a game out of him again. I think we can get 25-ish power play points, and I think we got a 55, 60-point defenseman here in Brent Burns. I would not be surprised if the over hits on 60. I don't want to hype anybody up too much, but I that's honestly what I think. 60 plus.
Over 60.
Chugging away. Chugga choo-choo, man.
It's like you drank a Red Bull, right? You chugged a Red Bull right before you started talking. What do you mean you don't want to hype anybody up? You're getting all hyped up.
I did. I'm drinking a Red Bull right now. I think it's true.
Okay. So, I hope it works out. I'm not saying I don't. Like, I'm not, rooting against him, but...
It sounds like you are.
They don't exactly play the same kind of speed of hockey.
How is that a bad thing?
Understand. So you want these shots to come back.
How's that a bad thing?
Give me a second. You want these shots to come back, yes? That's not the style of offense that the Carolina Hurricanes play. They don't play a back-end heavy offense, which is what they had to do in San Jose, because you have someone like Brent Burns. So now it's either they're going to have to change the way the entire offense is run so that Brent Burns fits in, because what they are is a cycle-heavy offense. They're a cycle-heavy offense, and that isn't how Brent Burns plays.
9th in the league in shots for per game.
I would love to see him get 3-4 shots on goal a game, but that's the whole thing. Brent Burns is going to take, 8 shots. Hopefully we're thinking 3 or 4 of them are going to hit. But they don't give that kind of shot percentage to a defenseman on that team. Tony DeAngelo was more on a rush, like he would step up into the offensive spot and not play fucking defense.
Last time Dougie Hamilton was there, he was 3.3 shots, 3.6 shots a game. I think it can come back.
I mean, the reason they didn't play that way is because they didn't have Brent Burns. So in traditional Brent Burns is a shoot a ton guy, and that's what I'm expecting. And he just, he's takes a ton of blocks as well, and still never gets injured because he's just a huge man. I'm super into it.
Brent Burns' ADP is 51. The style of play of San Jose to Carolina. That's a good thing. I don't know how you're using this as a negative. Let's talk about this. You got Brent Burns now. The style of play on their power play adjusted for Tony DeAngelo to the point where Tony D still saw the same amount of power play, but wasn't putting up the same amount of shots. Now they're getting somebody like a Dougie Hamilton, who I can probably, he was a 70-point pace defenseman, 63-point pace defenseman his last 2 years with Carolina. And that's when he was seeing most of the power play time. Brent Burns and Dougie Hamilton are similar enough to the point where those are the kinds of numbers that I'm looking at, not the Tony D numbers. I'm looking at the Dougie Hamilton numbers. And that's where I'm kind of plug and playing Brent Burns into. And I do think that they're going to adjust their power play, which wasn't that great last year. It's not like they're going to want to, our power play that was 13th in the league last year, just above the Anaheim Ducks. Let's do exactly that next year. No, they have Brent Burns now. So they're going to adjust their power play. They're going to say, let's get more shots on net. How do you score goals? You shoot. They're going to bring in Brent Burns, somebody that was like a 4-shot-a-game guy. I swear, I want to sell you on this, man, because Brent Burns is a perfect fit here.
I don't have him in number 7. That's all I'm saying.
You're adding Aho, you're adding Svechnikov, you're adding all these guys to Brent Burns. He didn't have anyone like that around him last year, and he still kept a reasonable point pace. Like 44 assists on San Jose is crazy. They barely scored 44 goals last year.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I hate it. I'm saying I don't have him at number 7.
You should.
There are other people that I would take ahead of him.
All right, so Brent Burns is our consensus number 7. Morgan Rielly, number 8. I think this one speaks for itself. He's the top power play guy in Toronto. Yeah, Morgan Rielly has been the same Morgan Rielly for years and years and years. There's nothing new that's happened in Toronto that's going to affect his game. The power play that's coming is going to be the same power play. You still have 65-goal Austin Matthews on the team. You have 100-point Mitch Marner there. John Tavares is going to do his shit, and Nylander is getting better and better. So I love having the top power play QB on one of the best power plays in the league.
The only time it was an issue was when Barry was there and he started challenging for the power play time in that, which is not an issue, obviously. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't see Giordano or Muzzin or anybody really challenging for this.
If anything, having Gio there takes a bit of the defensive pressure off Rielly and frees him up a little bit more.
Yeah, they have a solid top 6 rotation. So that's enough said on Morgan Rielly. I think he is what he is. Aaron Ekblad here at number 9. We talked about this one. Zach, you had him at number 6. Raj, you had him down at number 12. I had him here at number 9. So Aaron Ekblad, does he stay healthy? How much does Huberdeau affect this? How much does Matthew Tkachuk make up for the loss of Jonathan Huberdeau? There's going to be some question marks on this one. And the biggest question mark is, does he stay healthy for a year? It feels like we've had to say point pace with Aaron Ekblad to the point where it's almost like Erik Karlsson. And that's tough. 77 point pace last year, but he only played 61 games. In those 61 games, he had 57 points, which is more than he has ever even paced for. So it's a very good fit. Very good defenseman. The hits are good. Blocks are okay. Shots are real good. If he plays a full year, this is a very important fantasy hockey defenseman
that I'm sure you can get at a discount.
He has been going. He's actually the 6th off the board, so he's going right behind. Fifth off the board. Sorry. So it's Makar, Hedman, Yossi, Fox, Ekblad. He's going on the 2-3 turn.
I'd rather have guys like Letang ahead of him. Like Ekblad had a huge jump in fantasy point pace last year. Point pace is great if there's a lot of games. He doesn't tend to play all season long, which hurts, but he went from just Fantrax leagues 2.8 points per game to 3.6, which was his biggest jump by far. So just in terms of pace, he went up a lot. You know, Zach's kind of forgetting about how big changes tend to scare him. Like how that's a huge change to what they've done to that team, right? And this one actually does scare me.
It is a big change. But I have sufficiently hyped myself up on Aaron Ekblad. Mm-hmm. When he is on the ice, he is fantastic. It's not like they just traded away Jonathan Huberdeau and got, some futures and shit and didn't have to pay a bunch of money and whatnot. No, they got a Matt Tkachuk back, who is a fucking blue chip player. He's going to be incredibly good on that Barkov line.
Which is going to pad the even strength
he's
stats.
Playing, he's fantastic.
That being an even strength line together is going to pad Aaron Ekblad's even strength production. And what was it? It was like 2 or 3 years ago we were getting chirped for how much we liked Aaron Ekblad, and here he is. He has arrived. One thing I will say is I've said this quite a few over the offseason is that Florida was the highest scoring team since 1995 with Mario Lemieux. That Penguins team was the last team that scored as much as Florida. From last year going into this year, if it was the same team, I'd be projecting pretty much everybody for a little bit of a soft regression.
But still at the same time, I feel like we always need to point out that these injuries, like we're pointing at his injury history, it's not like he has a recurring, shoulder problem where he's just always getting concussions. You know what I mean? He is out for 30 games every year because of concussions. No, these are like freak bullshit fucking accidents where you go into the boards wrong or your ice skate just kind of gets clipped in just the wrong way. Like,
he's not injury prone, he's accident prone.
Yeah. I don't want to say extenuating circumstances, but dude, it's not like he just is getting the same injury over and over again. Like they're just weird happenstances.
So he is accident prone, which is still a question mark.
That's not great either, but you know what I mean? Like,
I don't think he's bad. By no means is he bad, but I just think.
Where did you have him? Oh, see, you had him at number 12, Raj. See, I don't feel so bad about having Brent Burns number 11 then.
They're not going to be bad, but they just had, like you said, the best offensive season since 30 years ago kind of thing. That's bound to regress quite a bit. Plus, breaking up Huberdeau and Barkov on that power play has been a thing for their whole career, basically. So just all those changes scare me a bit, just to knock him down a few places. And I actually like that he ended up at about 9 overall, because I think I did maybe have him a little low, but I wouldn't bump anybody personally.
Number 10, we had Mo Seider going into his sophomore year. This is a much improved Detroit team, and I think that played into all of our rankings here. You always kind of think that a sophomore slump could potentially hit somebody. But with all the improvements that Detroit made, I think any slump he might see is going to wash out. I don't know how much higher I'm going to project him. He was, what do you have, like 52 points last year? I'd probably put him in that 55-ish point range, 50 points.
50 points.
All right, there you go. I think he's probably a 55-point guy. What really sells me is just the periphery is out of hand. And this is a guy that came into the league. I saw him crunching vets, just chewing them up along the boards. He's 21 years old. He is mature. He's 6'4", 200 pounds. He's throwing people to the ground. And I don't think in his rookie year, he looked like a 10-year veteran, just chucking people to the ground. Great peripheral, fantastic in categories leagues. I don't think you're getting him. I think our ADP is probably not doing him any justice here in the 4th round. For categories leagues, you're probably looking at him there in the 4th round, a lot earlier, or even a 3rd round guy. He is 8th in our ADP, probably going 6th in Cats leagues. But this is a guy that's going to fill all of the categories, all of them. Maybe not plus minus.
And I think that if he plays another 82 games, I have him for over that 55 because of the moves they've made. I mean, we've lauded the Detroit Red Wings for the moves that they've made. I love the Andrew Copp. I love the David Perron. Like, Lucas Raymond is going to take another step forward. I still believe in Jakub Vrana if he stays. If he stays around and actually produces. They have a very deep team. I do. I like this a lot for him. I think that, I see a possible... I'm taking 60.
Oof.
I would take the over on 60. I really would. If he plays another 82 games, I would take the over on 60.
I like the 55-ish, give or take a couple, but 60 would be hot.
I'm in on it, and it's because of the additions. It's because he did all that with, what they had last year, and they were a surprise, to say the least, last year. This year, they made real moves. They look like a legit, at least on paper. And usually I'm scared of big changes, but this was a big change to the fucking better. Not like, hey, we're, really mixing up our...
They bought a second line, the way that Vegas did back in the day, where they got like Stone and Pacioretty, and, they put together a line. They got Kopp, they got Perron, Vrana's going to be there. They bring in guys like Kubalik. This is a better team than it was last year. He 21 power play points last year for Mo Seider, and that's surprising in Detroit. I think then a lot of the forwards were like in the 15, 16, 17, 18 range. But that's the thing, is he touches the puck. We're going back to what you were saying about Adam Fox. He is, the straw that stirs the drink on the power play. He's going to be touching the puck. He's the distributor. I don't know if I got him for 30, which is the way that I would see him getting to 60 points is bumping up those power play points. But it's a team that's going to score more at even strength. You're going to score more at even strength. David Perron on the power play is not going to be a bad thing. He's not. So
Triple P, power play Perron.
It's going to help. So, 25 power play points. If he can do 25 at even strength, that's 50 right there. If he can do 30 at even strength, we're looking at 55. 60 is going to be a stretch, but it's not impossible. Not by any stretch. So I had him at number 10. Zach, you had him at 9. Raj, you had him at 10.
He wasn't freakish, really. Like, I think what makes him good is just the way he plays. He hits a lot. He blocks a lot. He only had 7 goals, so it wasn't like he had a freakishly high shooting percentage where he was getting all these weird goals or anything. Like, the power play is going to improve, so if anything, the power play points are going to go up. His offense is probably going to go up a tiny bit. I mean, he ended up 9th overall in terms of fantasy last year, and I think if he stays the same, he was 9th overall, and I think staying the same is pretty reasonable to ask from a 22-year-old. Like, he'll probably get better. All he has to do is stay the same, and stat-wise, he should be top 10. So, yeah, I'm all in for him. I really like it, but everybody really likes him, and that's sometimes a problem in terms of ADP, depending on in your league. Like, I'm looking at the Fantrax ADP in front of me, and he's going 43 right now, which means he's going ahead of Riley. He's going right with Chris Letang, going ahead of Burns. So that's the only downside to Seider is everybody loves him.
Yep. Let's do our top 10, and then I'll get into the honorable mentions here. Top 10, Cale Makar, Victor Hedman, Roman Josi, Adam Fox, John Carlson. That's our top 5. Chris Letang, Brent Burns, Morgan Riley, Aaron Ekblad, Mo Seider, 6 through 10. Our honorable mentions, Quinn Hughes at number 11, Shea Theodore at 12, Drew Doughty, Miro Heiskanen, Thomas Chabot. That is our honorable mentions, 11 through 15. And I wanted to say, just on Shea Theodore here, man, I had him at number 11. Zach, you had him at 18. What gives?
Dude, fuck the Knights. Fuck the Knights. Dude, they're gonna suck.
We teased a little bit of, a big disagreement here. And I'm going to, a little bonus content for Gen Pop out there. We're going to give you guys a little something. I had Rasmus Dahlin at number 12. Zach, you had him at number 17. Zach, Raj, you didn't have him on the list at all.
Mm-mm.
So, what is up with that? I guess it's me versus you here, because I have Dahlin at number 12. You don't have him here at all. I'm the highest on him. You are obviously the lowest. What is your take?
Buffalo is the take. I mean, he had one really quite good year. I don't know. I'm looking at my list, and there's no one I want to bump off for any reason. Man, I mean, that's what it really comes down to. There's no one on my list who I would give up for Dahlin, and that's basically the bottom line. There's so much risk because it's Buffalo. They're not expected to win, which always bothers me when a team's not expected to win, that at any point you can just not play for a while. they might want to try out some of the other options. I don't know. There's just no reason for him to try every single game is an issue. There's so many things. And like I said, it basically comes down to I'm just staring at my list and there's no one on there.
He's just out there making business decisions?
No, he's out there playing on a bad team that's supposed to be good eventually. And I do not like that. And there's no one I think that I'd bump. That's it.
2 out of the last 3 years, he's had over a 50-point pace. And when I look at his stats directly next to Noah Dobson's, who you have here at number 18, I have at 17, and Zach has at 22, they are almost tit for tat the same player. They both played 80 games last year. They both had 13 goals. Dobson had 0.3 more shots on goal per game. But when I'm looking at pace, Dahlin takes it. Even strength goals, Dahlin takes it. Even strength points, Dahlin takes it. Power play goals is tied. Power play points, Dobson wins by 1. Shots, Dobson's got it. Hits, Dahlin's got it by a decided marker. And blocks, Dobson has. So I just see these two guys as pretty much the same player. You know, we can talk about Buffalo being really bad, but we can talk about the New York Islanders being not as exciting offensively. But where I like Buffalo is they are getting better. And we're hoping that the New York Islanders are going to get better. And Dahlin, where's his ADP? I'm trying to find him here. 69.175. Noah Dobson is going 85. So actually Dobson's probably the better value. But Dahlin is somebody that has a higher pedigree, has already put up 54 points on a bad team. Pretty much exactly what we were saying about Brent Burns. Now, Dahlin's not going to Carolina, so we can't use the same sell. But we can talk about how 54 points on a bad team, that's good. Especially when we were talking about Dobson, 53 points on a New York Islanders power play, that's good. And that's where the disconnect is for me is I still think he's a good defenseman, easily top 20 fantasy defenseman, especially given the peripherals. I don't know. I want to put this one out to the listeners here.
And it's we've seen his floor. I know what his floor should be.
Yeah, it can be pretty scary because even in 2021, the 56 game season, he played every game and he had 23 points. So the floor is very real. But 2 out of the last 3 years, we've seen a ceiling year versus a floor year. I don't know. This one I want to put out to the listeners what the take is on Dahlin versus Dobson.
I mean, you can look at ADP and see what the real thing is, but everybody's going to say they like Dahlin better. I just don't see how Buffalo got any better. There's just nothing going on. It's another tank season option for Buffalo to get maybe the next Connor McDavid type of player. So
another fantastic.
Like I said, I just don't see it. And looking at all things considered, I wouldn't say he's a bad defenseman, but I have a feeling this is going to be a bad year.
Raj said that he's going to get healthy scratched.
Yeah, exactly.
Half the year.
Cut.
That's what I heard you say, Rod.
Like I said, I'm looking at my list, and I definitely don't want to bump anybody from my top 25 even. So
not Erik Karlsson.
Nope, absolutely not. Doesn't have Brent Burns.
Not Devon Tays.
No,
I don't know. Devon Tays is pretty good.
Yep.
He's pretty good.
Exactly. And we've got him down at 23. So
yeah, our top 10s. One by one, I had Makar, Hedman, Yossi, Fox, Karlsson is my top 5. Burns, Letang, Riley, Ekblad, Seider to round it out. Zach?
Like we said before, we all had the same 1-2. So I had Makar, Hedman, 1 and 2. But I put Adam Fox ahead of Roman Yossi, unlike the two of y'all. John Karlsson, number 5. Aaron Ekblad, Quinn Hughes. I put Quinn Hughes here because of the points. He's fantastic. You're not getting periphery from him, but still straight up point per game defensemen are hard to come by, and Quinn Hughes legit is one. So
he was almost assist a game.
Yeah,
it was ridiculous.
So I've got to put him high in my top 10. So I have him higher than actually even you, Raj. But I have Chris Letang after that, Mo Seider at number 9, and Morgan Riley rounding out my top 10.
I did not have Quinn Hughes higher than you. That's awesome. Another thing about him, though, is power play points. Canucks, just for whatever reason, they can be good or shitty, but they get a lot of power play points, and it's always going to be Quinn Hughes. So that's good. But I had Makar, Hedman, Yossi, and then my big difference was I had Letang higher than you guys at 4. And then Fox, Burns, Riley, Karlsson, Hughes, and then Mo Seider.
Right on. All right. Well, that's that. That's going to end our rankings series. So I hope you guys dig it. If you are, don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, however you find us, and follow us on Twitter at FHF Hockey. We're in the Fantasy Hockey Discord all the time. We'll catch you next week. Love yous.
Love yous.
Love you.
Adios, turd nuggets.